Chapter 2, Holy Mary, Mother of George. My mother's visit to the funeral home was a frigid affair for both sides, her family and the Carlins. She had always kept her distance from Patrick's folks, considering them shanty Irish, and I'm sure they saw her as a climber, an uppity gold digger. They weren't far wrong. My mother's capacity for good living had long been blunted by the realities of salaried employment, but she retained her class pretensions and tried to realize some of them by using us kids as advertisements for her taste. Much of the struggle between Mary and her sons revolved around her plans for us and our strongly developed instinct for independence. There was a fierceness to my mother's striving, typical of her generation. She was born in 1896. William Shannon in The American Irish writes, "Social rules and conventions in America are set by women, and the standards women enforced in the late Victorian America as to what was nice behavior could be cruel and rigorous. And to those standards, the Irish mothers and maiden aunts often added exacting requirements of their own because resentment and competitiveness impelled them not only to want to be accepted and well thought of, but also superior and invulnerable. Voila! Mary Berry in a nutshell. She felt she had detected a diamond beneath my father's rough shanty Irish exterior and could clean him up, polish the gem. It's a common courtship fantasy. That mission thwarted, she turned her sights to the more malleable silly putty of her sons. Pat the younger quickly screwed up that strategy. One time in the elevator of our building on Riverside Drive, they encountered a lady of particularly regal bearing. "What a lovely little boy," she purred. "And what is your name?" "Son of a bitch," answered the lovely little boy. Pat was dismissed early on by Ma as being a Carlin and having the dirty, rotten Carlin temper. And I became in her eyes a Beery, a scion of her superior, cultured, lace-curtain ancestry. My quiet nature as a little boy became the Beery sensitivity. She even named me for her favorite brother, George, a sweet, gentle soul who played classical piano. George, by the way, spent most of his life in the nut house. He had taken all his clothes off on the crosstown bus, and they said, "Don't do that." But he did it again 2 years later, so they put him in Rockland State Hospital, Building 17, diagnosed with dementia precox. He would also come home on Thanksgiving and Christmas and play the piano. One Thanksgiving he turned to me and said, "I'm an admiral. I sail out of Port Said." He pronounced Said as the past tense of say, not with the vowels separated. I thought it was wonderful that he'd spent his life in Rockland and claimed to be an admiral. But he never told me any more about his seafaring days. Part of my mother's strategy for advancing her life agenda and realizing her material dreams demanded careful control of the development of her children. I don't mean moral guidance or practical life advice, but a code that would make her look good and feel comfortable. Everything you do is a reflection on me. She was obsessed with appearances, utterly dependent on the approval of the outside world, in particular, that segment of society for whom she worked and that met her approval, the ruling class. Her vocabulary was full of tripe like, "A man is judged by his wife. When you speak, you judge yourself. You are judged by the company you keep. Judgment, 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 judgment of others, judgment by others." The other control factor was guilt, how our behavior made her feel. She turned everything into a test of how considerate or inconsiderate we were being. She carried it to melodramatic heights, infused it with a sense of martyrdom. It wasn't just, "I give you everything." It was, "I trudge home, night after night, my arms loaded with bundles for you boys. My poor arms loaded with bundles, and the doctor says I may drop on the spot because my blood pressure is 185 over 9,000, and the garbage isn't even out. I know lots of people heard that shit, but there was some extra dimension for me. It was frightening. I had the normal need to differentiate from the parent, especially one of the opposite sex, but she was repelling me with these aspects of behavior and her dreams for me. When her marriage broke up, her living with a maid on Riverside Drive and having nice Crystal and all of that shit went away. It was unfinished business. I think she wanted me to finish the job. On one occasion, I overheard her saying to Patrick that he would amount to nothing because he was a Carlin and so on, but I'm going to make something out of that little boy in there. It gave me steel. It made me determined that she wouldn't make something out of me. I would be the one that would make something out of me. And yet she was my mother, so she's deep in my art, both for what she gave me, especially that love of words, and for what I rebelled against in her. And she made me laugh. She had a way with a punchline. Once she told Pat and me about coming home on the bus that day, a big fat German man plonked down beside her. A big Hun sat next to me, she said, a big mess. He was taking up far too much room. So I took out my hat pin and showed it to him and said, "Condense yourself." I'll never forget the moment when I made my mother laugh for the first time. That I actually took an idea and twisted it, and she laughed. And it was real, not just cute kid stuff. I provoked a laugh in her by means of something I thought of. How magic that was, the power it gave me. Even after I made the break, made it pretty clear that I wasn't going to let her make something of me, she hung on. She'd find excuses to come visit me on the road when I was playing these little nightclubs in the early 60s. She'd show up in Boston or Fort Worth or Shreveport. "I just want to see if you have nice linens." When I was a regular on Merv Griffin in the mid-'60s, she came on the show and upstaged everybody, including me. In a way, I hadn't yet made a break with Mary's niceness. The 60s were my nice years. My nice suit, my nice collar, my nice tie, my nice haircut, and my nice material. When I really made the break in 1970, really put that niceness behind me, she had a remarkable but typical reaction. She came to the bitter end on Bleecker Street right around the time of the FM and AM album. I was doing 7 words by then, and so for the first time she saw me saying cocksucker and motherfucker on stage and having people laugh and applaud. Mary was never a prude. She liked to tell a dirty joke, but she'd make believe she felt ashamed and embarrassed. She'd give you a look like, "Aren't I awful? Am I a bad girl?" and then tell it. But I was taking things very far, plus I was attacking 2 of the things she held most dear, religion and commerce. She was mortified that I would be rewarded for these attitudes, but she was incredibly happy that I was successful. It was the payoff, the fulfillment of, everything you do is a reflection on me. She was the star's mother. Hi, I'm Georgie's mother. But here's the most telling thing. On the block of 121st Street where I grew up was our church, Corpus Christi, and Corpus Christi School. It was run by Dominican nuns, and they all knew Mary. Throughout my nice years, the sisters got to know me from television. They knew I was an alumnus of Corpus Christi, and my mother would visit with them, and it would be, "Yes, he's doing so well. Yes, I'm proud of him. Yes, you should be." Now come shit, piss, cocksucker tits, and God has no power. So one day she's walking past the church and runs into a couple of the nuns, and they comment on the new surge in my popularity and say Corpus Christi was all over the Class Clown album. So Mary says, "Yes, but isn't it awful, sisters, the language he's using?" And they say, "No, don't you see what he's saying is, these words are part of the language anyway, and they're kept off in their own little section and their own little closet. He's trying to liberate us from the way we feel about these things." My mother says, "Oh, yes, of course. She's okay now. She's fine. Shit, piss, fuck, cunt, cocksucker, motherfucker, and tits have just received the imprimatur of Holy Mother Church. Now they're nice words." When I threw my mother out of my life, figuratively as a teenager, I threw out the good with the bad. To make a clean break, you eliminate everything, but I still find her ambitions hidden in mine. And they're not necessarily bad. An important goal of mine is to do a one-man Broadway show. And it was Mary who used to take me to Broadway shows and to the lobby and point to people and say, "See that man's hand? Look at that. He's cultured. He's refined. Look how he holds his cigarette. Look at the angle of his leg. That's what I want for you." In some ways, my desire to go to Broadway and the legitimate stage is to impress the people my mother admired. I still have this longing to be Mary's model boy. She's hidden in every cranny of my workroom, requiring me to do things. What I have to do constantly is take Mary out of things and leave only myself in them, then decide if I want to do them. My mother wanted me to learn the piano, like her, like Uncle George the Admiral. And I did take lessons and play at recitals and shit, but I hated practicing. I had this dream one night long ago. I'm trying to learn these piano pieces, and I'm very frustrated because I haven't got time, and I'm trying to learn them. Then right there in the dream, I say to myself, "Hey, I don't even take piano lessons." When I woke up, I wrote that down. I stuck it up on the wall of the room where I work. Whenever I get goofy and my OCD kicks in, I look at it and say, Mary, get out of the room."